Alright, so I'm going to show you how to shine some boots. These are brand new baits. They do not have polish on them. They are new, which means that the polish that I put on is going to have to be done properly. If not, the shine will not look good. They have been worn, I believe, at least once. These are not my boots, in case you were wondering. A couple of supplies that I use. For one, I always use t-shirts. T-shirts, right? Just like you know. I've had these t-shirts for a while, and they have come in handy whenever I shine boots. All right? I am going to be using cotton balls. I'll explain that in a moment. Steel wool. Now note that it's the finest steel wool that you can get. Like it actually says super fine. Okay? And polish. Now there are a couple examples of polish here. This is an older can of polish. See how it is cracked? There's a little bit of moisture in there. You could probably use this. I don't recommend using old polish. Right? A lot of your moisture is gone. You wouldn't use old lotion on your skin. Don't use old polish on your boots. This is actually pretty new. There is a crack in it, so it's starting to dry out, right? But this is actually pretty good. You can actually see. I've been using it quite a bit by the divot in the middle. But when you look at this, right, take a look, make sure it's not hardened, right? Because some people use a lighter and light this entire thing. Do not do that, right? My source of heat is going to be a heat gun, which I'll show you in a moment. Actually, it's right here. Heat gun. Make sure you be careful where you use your heat gun. Observe all safety precautions when using a heat gun. Your brushes. I want to talk about the brushes real quick. Listen to this. You hear how stiff that is? Do not use that on your boots. This is a much finer side, but once you get past the first application or so, you do not want to be using this brush. Okay, if you got hard to reach spots, you can use a toothbrush or something soft. I use these foam, this foam for application for the first coat. Again, so I would use this brush for an application of the first coat of polish, and maybe this foam. But once you apply your first coat, this foam is actually going to scratch your polish. So you don't use the foam or the brush after the first application. Now let me explain what I mean by the application. So first, I'm going to basically, if you would, sand down the boots. If you look at the boots, you can kind of see the texture in the boots. But we want to knock that flat. And we want to knock that flat because the way you get that nice shine is to knock all the roughness in the leather flat and to cover it with a black polish so it's a flat surface. Only when it's a flat surface is it going to get that mirror shine. If you do not make it a flat surface, it will be buffed and have that buffed little bit of a sheen to it, but it will not be shiny. And I'll show you how to do that. So first application is steel wool with no polish. Steel wool with no polish. I use a little bit of water, steel wool, to knock down the roughness of the leather. Then I switch to the t-shirt, and I put maybe 2 or 3 coats with the t-shirt. And lastly, I use the cotton balls to wrap it up, okay? And I'll show you how all this works. So again, putting a little bit of water on the boots, see that? And I'm going one direction, right? Literally wet sanding the boot, okay? Like, well, Chief, that's not really doing anything. Well, it's better to do this than to not do this. But you can see how even water fills in right before it dries. Water fills in every crevice that you can't really see with your eye without maybe a microscope in the boot. So you can kind of see, using the water, how it's gonna lay flat and how it's gonna shine when it's done, okay? So there's a difference between this and this. It is much smoother. You don't wanna scratch it. Why are you only doing the toe? Well, because this person doesn't need their whole boot shined, and I'm doing this for free, so. Okay, now I'm gonna do the other boot, but you get the idea. All right, so I pretty much dried them off with the t-shirt. Okay, taking a look there. I'm gonna get this receipt out of my way. I'm tired of looking at it. And you can even see, maybe, I don't know if you can see the difference yet. I'm doing this real time, right? Yeah, I can really feel how much smoother the toes are on these boots. So next, what I'm going to do is apply some polish. And then I'm going to heat it up without rubbing it in. You'll see. Now, there's many different ways you can do this, right? Some people don't use water. I do, because I like for it to glide. So I saturate this with water, right? And I'm going to go in there and get a good amount of polish. It's hard to do this with one hand, okay? But I'm doing what I can here. Get a good amount of polish on there. When you apply it on the boot, I tried to cover, and I'm starting with the part that I care about the most, which is the toe right here. That's what everybody looks at the most. And you get the ones that are real picky out there. Why don't you shine the whole boot? Well, you can do that if you want. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to do the toe. That's what this person asked for, is the toe. Now, if you look at it, see that rough looking finish? That's why you don't use this after this step, okay? So, what I plan on doing is I have applied the polish, okay? Once I cover the entire boot, or this portion of the boot rather, with the polish, then and only then will I start to heat up the polish, so when it heats, it soaks into the leather, and then make sure I start applying more coats with the t-shirt, and that's gonna take a moment. But see, covering it up, filling it in, covering the entire toe. See how much polish I'm using? Don't be shy at this point, but also don't lump it up like crazy, because you're gonna have drips if you overheat the polish, and you'll have runs. Kind of like you have runs in paint, you'll have runs in the polish, and that does not look good. You have to strip it and start all over again. So now that I've covered this toe, I'm gonna cover the other boot. Okay, so I've covered both toes and I've got my heat gun. Now I'm going to put heat on this. This is not going to start off with this, but you'll see in a second. Since I've heated it up, I'm immediately going to switch to the t-shirt. A nice soft portion of the t-shirt, as soft as possible, because sometimes you get some sort of liquid or something in your t-shirt and it actually gets kind of stiff. So water, polish, and I start filling this in. And I do it very lightly, so I do not scratch the polish off of the boot. And that's the mistake a lot of people make. Like, I'm barely putting any pressure on this. You do not want to scratch the polish off of the boot. You want to polish the polish to where you're not polishing any leather. Right now, I'm just getting all the polish into the leather, right? And it takes a few coats to get where there's no leather showing whatsoever, and that's the key. If there's any leather showing, you are not going to get that mirror shine. You are not going to. Simple as that. You can already tell the difference, and you can see the swirls coming in, right? Very lightly. I need more polish, so I'm gonna go back, water, polish. And in a minute here, I'm applying. See how I'm applying? Just putting the polish back on, just filling the leather at this point, not shining the boot. You can't shine the boot until you have all polish covering the toe. All polish, no leather whatsoever. And now it's getting dry because my water is going away or being used up. So I go back, get more water so I can keep the polish lubricated. Once it dries, if you keep going with the t-shirt, you actually scratch the polish. You do not want to scratch the polish. That's why you see a lot of times people switch to another portion of the t-shirt. All right, and I'm probably gonna heat this up again. And I will do this a few times, several times. So now, I'm going in with water and polish, right? And I'm covering the boot, okay? Covering the boot with the cotton ball. That's a lot of water, yes it is. right? You want to keep this nice and nice and nice and covered with polish, because it's the polish that shines and not the leather. Any leather showing, again, you will not get that shine. And try to go the same way you've been going. If you reverse it, you can actually lift the polish that you've been putting down. So I'm going to keep doing this. Then I'm going to put some heat on it, and I'm going to go back with the same cotton ball, and you'll start seeing once this cools off, this polish cools off, it starts forming a protective coat completely covering the leather once all the pores are filled, and then you'll get that glass shine. So at this point, I'm literally just continuing to, it's basically wet sanding, is what it is, with a cotton ball over and over and over. And you see how you can still see the roughness in the leather, see that? We have to keep putting polish and polish and polish until that's no longer visible. I haven't really touched the other boot, so you have a comparison. You see how much polish is on this boot? There's a lot of polish on that boot, but it's laying flat. All right, well, what happens when you heat it up? Well, that's something else I want to talk about real quick. Be careful when you heat it up. Don't burn the polish. You just want to warm it up so it melts, basically, and then it stays in place. You don't want to blow it off of the boot. You don't want to melt it back down to the sole. You want to keep it on the toe, but keep it so it's warm, so it melts, so it kind of like that water did, how water lays flat. Water will lay flat. Polish will not if you don't do it correctly, right? Now, you can kind of start to see your reflection, right? Which is good. And I've been doing this for maybe 10 minutes or so. Not long, right? Some people say, oh, you must have spent hours and hours on those boots. Like, no, there's a way to do it to where it doesn't take that much time. But I will tell you that it looks better the longer you maintain it, the more polish you get. So as life goes on, with you wearing a boot, the shine will look better. I've been shining mine for a while now, and the boot's getting a little worn, so I have to get a new set, and I'll be doing the same thing that I'm doing to these boots. Right? No, most of the shine that you're seeing right now is not just because of the water, it's actually because of the polish. But you can actually see, you can see my hand in there. The reflections of the things in my barracks room, because I'm in the barracks. So, and you gotta be light. Don't put pressure. You're just letting the cotton ball do the work. You're just going over and over and over and making sure there's plenty of lubrication from the water, right? Going over this polish and over and over and over. I'm gonna go ahead just so you can kind of see. And I'm gonna heat this up again. I'm gonna be careful. All right, so it started to get a little bit light in some places. See that? That's why you don't want to do it too much. Now I gotta hurry. Get the cotton ball, water, cotton ball, water. And I don't keep water in there either. I want to use actually that much polish. It's a little bit too much polish. But see how much water I got on here? Yep. Keep going and going and going. And now it's actually gliding. I can feel it. So we're getting close. Right? Sometimes what I do is when it starts to get like that, you can't really, once this happens, you need to switch to a different cotton ball. But don't get a dry cotton ball, because believe it or not, the cotton ball is too dry. It will scuff the finish that you're going for. So, I just put a little bit on here. I'm going to toss this cotton ball to the side, and I'm going to heat this up again. Kind of melt what I just put on there. That's it. Just melt it. Get a fresh cotton ball. Get some water on the cotton ball and just a little bit of polish, just for lubrication purposes, right? And we're going back. All right, this is going to take probably a couple minutes to get to where it starts to shine. See those swirls? That's how you know you're getting close, when you start to see the swirls. But again, you can still see the texture in the leather. You see that? It's going to take a lot more coats to get this where it needs to be. But for a new boot, it's not looking too bad. Let's do it. All right, I'm gonna need to put this down so I can pick it up. All right, at this point, I'm starting to think it's getting to the point where I have a good amount of polish on there. Now comes one of my least favorite parts, waiting. So I'm gonna let the polish dry. I'm gonna let the boot sit for a while. And once it sits for a while, I'm going to apply polish, but I'm only going to apply it with cotton balls and use cotton balls to manipulate the boot to get it shiny. So when you're doing this, also, you want to make sure there's no junk on the cotton ball, no dirt, no nothing. Because if there's any of that, you're going to scratch the boot. But you can look in the difference. See the boot here? Not been taken down with steel wool. And as you transition, you can see the difference, right? How much there is, polish there is on the boot, right? But there's still, compared to my boots, and I'll show you some boots that need to be shined here. My boots really need to be shined. They really, really need to be shined. So don't judge me, because I, wore them for a while without shining them. But see my boot? See that? It's all cracked now, right? This needs to be shined. But if you look at it, it's kind of hard to see. Here, let me wipe it off so it doesn't look so bad. All right, we're just wiping the boot with a cloth. You can't see the leather, right? But see how that t-shirt left those streaks? See that? But now my leather starting to crack because the polish is flaking off. Like all that polish, that's all polish that's coming off of there. That's how much polish I had on the boot. So you have to strip your boots after a while or this starts to happen. So you have to take it down and do this process all over again. See how, it's filled in pretty good. So how long have I had these boots? Probably about a year and a half. Yep. So, but these just take a few minutes to shine and they look good. It takes me just a few minutes on each boot. It was raining the other day. That's why they're all covered in, but I shine. See the difference here too? Polish, no polish. I do shine the whole boot, but I only mirror finish the toe. And you can kind of see here my reflection, but you can really see all that texture. You can even see the swirls from the cotton ball. See that? Once you lay all that down and cover it with polish, those swirls become less apparent. And yeah, that's how you do it. Patience. But I'm gonna let this boot sit, let the polish dry, and I'm gonna hit it again with some more kiwi. And that's all it is, just regular, plain old kiwi. That's it. No parade gloss, no fancy stuff, just kiwi, right? They do make a product. I don't know where you can buy it, but a friend of mine showed it to me. He put it on his boots. It was like a final coat, and it really brought out the deep blackness of the kiwi. But yeah, you don't have to do that. Just shiny boots, right? All right, so I'm still going around and around and around with a cotton ball, but we're getting a lot more polish on the boot. A lot more polish. You can see how the water is now. See how it's pulling up? Because there's polish on there. But when it's leather, like here, the water just kind of, it's just kind of there, and it kind of soaks into the boot. Right, when you got more polish, I'm doing this lightly again. And sometimes I'll bring the heat gun over, heat it up just a little bit to get the polish malleable again. And that's pretty much it. Just keep doing that over and over and over, and you can actually kind of see my phone, right? When the boot dries, again, where we've been working, where we haven't been working. See the difference? Polish, looking even at the texture of the boot, you can see that a lot of the pores are filled with polish now, which is why we're able to start getting this mirror shine. Right, now I've seen people who use hairspray and all that stuff. I don't use hairspray. I'm too afraid of what will happen if it cracks. I heard it doesn't crack, but I just use polish. Right?